Hi everyone, I'm Jane Clark and I'm really sorry I'm a few minutes late. I actually was talking to my phone on myself because I'm not much of a technical person, as Maya would say. Now my daughter is 18 and we live up in Cumbria, and we live with our dog Kumi, who actually is rather luckily snoozing by my side. But at this time in the evening she often gets up on my lap, so she may join us in a minute. And I'm hoping you can also not get too interrupted by the sheep, because it's lambing time and the lambs at this time of the evening go pretty crazy. And I'm delighted that I've been invited by We Are Fit and Well to share a few of my insights. And you could take notes, but equally we're recording the session and we'll load it into IGTV stories. But also, if I don't cover everything that you'd like me to cover, you could post questions, but also you could join our community, Nourished by Jane Clark, and we'd be delighted to help you with all the answers. So I am a dietitian. I clinically trained as a dietitian 30 years ago. Yes, 30 years ago, I feel pretty old, but I had short grey hair then, so it's easy for me to disguise that I've had my practice for 30 years. And I trained at Leeds. I did my dietetic degree, but then I decided to do my cordon bleu. So I trained as a chef because I was really adamant that I wanted the whole area of my therapeutic practice to be around nourishment and beautiful food and dignity. And so I did my cordon bleu training, and then I set up my practice. And then I was very lucky over the last 30 years to be involved in amazing campaigns. From my dear friend Jamie Oliver asked me to work with him on the school meals campaign, and I've worked with incredible academics right the way through to sports people, and I've been lucky that I've built up a collection of amazing supporters that really, like me, shout from the rooftops to say that nourishment is really important. And I'm the founder of Nourished by Jane Clark, which you can take a look on our website. We have recipes, ideas, inspiration, a community, and we have some drinks that are supportive of people. But I wanted this evening to really start talking about gut health. And we're recording it and we will load it onto IGTV if you just want to take some notes or share it with other friends or relatives who perhaps similarly are struggling with digestive health. And digestive health is one thing I think we take pretty lightly unless you really struggle with it. And I think sadly the medical profession, certainly in the current climate, is far too eager to sort of just dismiss it and say, oh, it's only a bit of bloating or it's digestive discomfort, and just, sort of go away and sort of just sort it out. Well, actually it can be not only horrible discomfort, but it can be pretty debilitating. Over the years of looking after patients, I've had many women in particular who completely lose your confidence with going out, because if you don't have control over your gut, it can be excruciatingly painful, it can lead to accidents, and it's just awful. So I wanted this evening to share some of my tricks of the trade, because what you put inside your body can make a big difference to how your gut behaves. So, and also it's not just about managing symptoms, which I'm going to take you through, it's also about the whole area, which is really exciting in that we're seeing that if we get our gut health good, then we not only influence our gut at that precise moment, but if we get the gut working well, it means that we're producing substances that not only have an influence on how we feel, but it has an influence on our inflammation within the body. Now, you might have seen that I wrote an enormous feature in the Daily Mail, and we have this within our community. It's all about how do we reduce inflammation, because inflammation is in essence the root cause of so many different conditions, from cancer, diseases like cancer, dementia, heart disease, aging, but also our mental health is influenced by our gut health. So if we can get our gut health right, we've got less likelihood of suffering with depression, anxiety and other mood disorders. And this is also very much key within young people's health, because we know a big impact of the COVID pandemic has been mental health of young people. And I've seen it, I'm a mum to Maya, who's 18, and her friends. I've seen it within my practice that where we've not been able to really dissipate all the stress and anxiety, our gut is one area where we really struggle. And when we get stressed, anxious, and when we're not sleeping well, our gut is one area that really starts to struggle. So if you're struggling with your gut, one of the areas where you might be struggling most is with bloating. Now that can be bloating that is producing a lot of gas, which is really uncomfortable and embarrassing. And if you search sort of terms like foods and bloating, you can come up with very strict guidelines of cutting out wheat, gluten, dairy, and I think it's such a shame to cut something out if perhaps by reducing the amount of it that you're eating, you can actually bring your comfort level down so you can tolerate a little bit of gluten. And if we take the subject of bread, breads differ hugely. A bread that is really slowly fermented, like a sourdough, can sit better in a gut than something that's very mass-produced white bread, pappy white bread, because there's a bread making process called Chorley Wood bread making process, and that's really big industrial bread. And that is, if you don't have enough time to ferment the wheat or whichever flour you're using, the bread is harder to digest. So just watch and just maybe try, maybe like a sourdough, equally a small thin slice of a sourdough when it's toasted is easier to digest. Or it could be that you tolerate different grains better than gluten, and wheat rather. So look at, maybe keep a food diary, see what you're eating and how your body is, and see if you can see any patterns, so that if you decrease the amount of gluten, it could mean that you don't get the bloating. Equally, if you look at dairy, I think again it's such a shame to make a sweeping cut of all things dairy, because your body responds differently to perhaps something that's organic dairy, because the organic way of farming, I'm a big fan of organic farming, means that you're perhaps not processing something as highly, and it's often the processing and additives, preservatives, which can really make the dairy make you bloated. So it could be that choosing organic is better for your gut. Equally, it could be that you choose a little bit of an organic yogurt rather than going for milk. It could be that you have a cheese that is really well matured and you just have shavings of it on an evening like this, to make a rocket salad, and then have shavings of a pecorino, a parmigiano. Instead of having a big chunk of cheese, shavings of it means that you can digest it. So when you're bloated, look at foods, look at maybe decreasing the quantity, look at the type of dairy or gluten or wheat that you're having. And I'd say that if you're really struggling with bloating, one of the biggest mistakes we make is to think, right, we need lots of raw, we need lots of juices, we need lots of big salads, loads of raw fruit. And actually, if you put raw anything inside a gut that's really uncomfortable, your gut will start to struggle. And at this time of the year, when we want to be having the salads, a trick is that you could make a salad that's actually made with cooked vegetables. So asparagus is coming into season. We could make something like a roasted butternut squash, cool it down, you could roast your tomatoes, you could char grill some courgettes, cool them down so they have got that lovely refreshing flavour and that texture and the temperature, but then make it into, as the French make, a salad niçoise. So you do the cooked beans, then you mix it with some olive oil, some lovely fresh herbs, and it means that you get refreshing taste, but it's actually easier to digest. So if you're struggling with bloating, don't fill your gut full of all things raw. Maybe go more towards the cooked things. That could be something like a chilled soup that's made with cooked ingredients, so it doesn't have to be always hot. But actually in Ayurvedic medicine, some of you might know my daughter's from India, so I spend a lot of time looking at the way that the Ayurvedic practitioners work with our body, and they very much feel that warm food is easier to digest. And certainly over the years of looking after patients, often that is the case. But there's something, if you're really struggling with an overactive gut. One trick is to look at ideas that make food very easy to digest, and this could be something that is what we call a low residue diet. I actually think this needs a new branding because I think the word residue is not very attractive at all. But in essence, it's really simple. It's looking at foods that don't actually put a lot of fibre in our gut. Now, normally you probably hear that nutritionists talk about fibre all the time, and we see it as a good thing. But actually, when your gut is overactive, what you don't want to do is to put lots of fibre inside the gut, because that makes the gut go even more. So it can be that you avoid the things like the brassicas, that you have something like a simple risotto. You make a broth and you have a simple bit of white pasta. So instead of doing the whole grain rice, do something that's white rice. Instead of doing the whole grain breads, do a white bread that's a sourdough. And it means that you're just putting foods in the gut that's easy to digest. And you can look on our website, Nourished by Jane Clark, I've done some little videos about how to make foods that are low residue but really delicious. And by taking down the residue in your diet, it actually can calm the gut down. But then, of course, another symptom of poor gut health during this month of really raising awareness of gut health is constipation. And I think unless you've actually struggled with constipation and the pain it causes, again, it's one of those that we really underestimate. That constipation, because the bowel has so many nerve endings within that whole area, if you're constipated, it can make you feel horrible. And also it means that you can feel liverish and that old sort of old-fashioned, I don't want to put any more food inside my gut. So actually something you might be pretty surprised about is that I'm a fan of lovely, delicious coffee. And coffee in the morning can be one easy way to get the gut moving. But I wouldn't overdose on the caffeine, because that can then sort of start being pretty acidic in the gut. But constipation, one of the biggest causes of constipation is lack of fluid, lack of water. Because fibres, if we're putting them in as whole grains, fruits, vegetables, beans, lentils, they sit in the gut really heavily unless you put the water inside the gut. So I'd say definitely a good 2.5 to 3 litres of water. And I'm going to have a sip of my water, practitioner here myself, and sip the water throughout the day. And that really helps work with the fibre to hopefully ease the constipation. And when you get rid of the constipation, when you get rid of the bloating, you might be able to start looking at 2 really exciting areas of research. We found that if you have a good gut, you want to nurture what we call good bacteria. Now, good bacteria are what we otherwise know as probiotic bacteria. So probiotics are like Lactobacillus acidophilus. Now, you can get probiotic supplements, which are fantastic. You can also make your own kombucha, kefir, and also make fermented foods like kimchi. I absolutely love kimchi, and or sauerkraut. And I like a breakfast that's got sort of scrambled eggs or poached eggs with kimchi, because kimchi not only has grow your own, in essence, probiotic bacteria, but they also contain, because often you make it with cabbage, pickled vegetables of different sorts, they contain what we call prebiotics. Now, prebiotics are, in essence, your compost. Your compost is the good stuff that you put inside your bowel that starts to grow the good live bacteria, nurture the probiotics. And probiotics and good bacteria not only nurture good health within our gut, but you might have heard, or if you're a bit late joining, is gut health is not just about how we feel in our gut. If we can get our good gut health right, it nurtures anti-cancer substances, it reduces inflammation within the body, and it starts to reduce our risk of developing diseases like cancer, heart disease, diabetes, dementia. My dad has frontotemporal lobe dementia, so a big area of the work that we do within our Nourish community is really raising awareness, helping people live with dementia. But by getting a good gut health, you reduce your risk of developing certain types of dementia. And then also, it actually has an influence on our mood and our mental health, because there are amazing scientists like Phil Spector, and there are really good areas of research to show that if we can get someone's gut health right, we reduce the likelihood of struggling with anxiety, depression, and all sorts of mood disorders. And I think at this particular time, when we've all been through a really brutal year of lockdown and isolation and not being able to connect with the people that can lift our mood, our gut is an area that we've really been struggling with. So mental health also has been a huge area, and very sadly a side effect of the pandemic is that we've not been able to access the support facilities, those experts, the professionals. So we're having to do a lot of heal thyself. So hopefully all my tips and ideas this evening have helped you come up with ideas of maybe to get your gut to feel more comfortable. Look at what you could do that's extra. Maybe it's looking at probiotics. Maybe it's looking at the different areas of growing your own bacteria by getting into kombucha, getting into kimchi, getting your sauerkrauts, because it's a really great way of also economically getting vegetables to work for us. Because if you get a bulk, say, of cabbage, ginger, turmeric, onions, and you pickle them, you can then make jars, and then it's a beautiful gift to give to someone when you go around. I think it's a really nice thing. Instead of just taking a bottle of wine, take a bottle of homemade kombucha or kimchi or kefir, and it's a really lovely, nurturing gift to give to someone. And a couple of remedies that could help you. I'm a big fan of organic aloe vera juice, and I'm a big fan of herbal teas. I love lemon verbena, is really settling for the gut, verveine, chamomile, and if you're a big fan of mint, a trick is not to have the mint too strong, because mint is really settling to begin with. But if you leave it, just as often you do, you put a tea bag or some fresh mint leaves in a pot and you leave it, and then you keep drinking, it actually adds acidity, and that can aggravate IBS symptoms. So I really hope my tips and advice have given you some inspiration. But do come to us with other questions. Come to me. I'd love to run another session. If we are fit and well, we'll have me back. But come and join us in our community, and I hope on this lovely spring evening that you stay safe and well, and I send love from Cumbria. So if you can still see me, I'm trying to turn this off. So maybe this will be one thing. can't seem to stop it. So it seems like I'm spending the evening